Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Yasuo, the game is Warships, and welcome to Riposte in Ranked Mode. We're riding with Reyteitoku in the Tier 6 Japanese carrier Ryujou, and it is a ranked game. Now, ranked, this season you either get spectacular replays, or you get utter disasters. I've had more disasters than spectacular of late. This game, however, I got asked if I was interested in this one on the Discord. I hang out on the r/Warships Discord from time to time, and I said yes, basically, the moment I saw the scoreboard. Because, well, this one is basically a masterclass in how to play a carrier. You'll notice from his flight squadrons down at the bottom that Rey is running a 1-2-2 setup. That's Ryujou's strike loadout. Now, that's not a normal load, although he's going to have a fairly spectacular game of it, thanks principally to a colossal mistake by the enemy carrier in the first 3 minutes of the game. Group 2 has done the usual scouting run down to point A. Of course, he's only got one fighter. The enemy team has got 2 fighter squadrons. We can see them on the minimap. Right, that's a problem. The only Ryujou loadout that has 2 fighter squadrons is the air superiority load, the 311, which means that there's a 3rd fighter unit out there somewhere. By the book, this means that Reyteitoku is, well, toast, frankly. Conventional logic says what happens is that his fighters get beaten out of the sky and outnumbered 2-1 or even 3-1, or just locked and strafed. And then they go to work on his bombers. He gets deplaned, and while the other Ryujou only has 1 torp bomber squadron and 1 dive bomber squadron, used correctly, they can do quite a bit of damage in the right place. Rey kind of knows this. You'll see he's diverting his bombers down the side of the map, tiptoeing around the enemy fleet which has started capping B. He's keeping half an eye on them. His own fighter squadron is playing kissy-kissy, chasey-chasey around point A, and amazingly, the enemy carrier has not smelt a snipe. We're 2.5 minutes into the game at this point. The enemy carrier driver hasn't seen Rey's bombers. If he was paying attention on the team screen, he could have looked at Rey's aircraft rating and realised from the score that he was running 1-2-2. He's only seen 1 fighter at this point, which is a good evidence of a 1-2-2 load. And he's not seen the enemy bombers, which means they're breaking and avoiding contact, which means they're going around the side of the map, which means carrier snipe. So at some point, he should have pulled at least one of his fighter squadrons back to cover at least his forward elements, and preferably himself. Except we can see all 3 fighter squadrons. And they haven't done that. In fact, they are merrily on the forward line of ships between points A and B. Like I said, the enemy carrier is making a colossal mistake as we watch, except he's about to get a second chance, because that Mutsu is going to spot Reyteitoku's bombers. He's just lost 2 fighters to a strafe, but he's managed to turn them around, comes back, takes out one of the enemy fighters. It's still not a great match, but at least he's not locked. Except now he is locked because he's deliberately engaging that closest section of bombers to stop them break away. The enemy fighters still haven't responded. There's still 1 squadron blundering around in the flak envelope at D5 because the enemy carrier commander has got his attention on his own bombers who are closing in on Rey. That's 1 torpedo squadron, 1 dive bomber squadron. Rey has got 2 torpedo bomber squadrons and 2 dive bomber squadrons closing in on the enemy carrier. Who do you think's gonna win the damage race on this one? It's gonna be Rey, and that first drop from Group 5 is a spectacular one. 4 hits, 3 fires, and the enemy carrier, well, he's not entirely stupid. He's seen the torpedo bombers, he's not panicked, he's not putting the fire out. Because, of course, if he puts the fire out, torpedo bombers immediately pounce, drop their own torpedoes, and suddenly he's flooding and he's got nothing to counter it with. Except, of course, he's not on fire in 1 place, he's in fire on 3 places, and he's already down 20,000 health. So, torpedoes in the water. Ryujou's barely turning, but it's not going to matter. He eats 1, 2, and oh dear, he's dead anyway. Group 3 dump their torpedoes and rearrange the wreckage, and the enemy fighters get back just in time to watch their home base sink beneath the waves. Sorry guys, better luck next time. So, enemy carrier out of action. That means it's fun time. The fighters can relax. All they need to do is really tidy up the occasional catapult fighter, and then they can get on with their true mission in life, their true goal, peeping on the enemy destroyers. Yeah, I know, the restraining orders are a pain. But before they can do that, they have got to take care of something else. The enemy carrier managed to get his squadrons a couple of last orders, and you notice he's running them north. That could be a revenge swipe on the bombers, but oddly enough, it isn't. The enemy fighters come over Danzig's torpedo in the friendly farragut, and then they stop. Now, you could be excused for thinking that Reyteitoku is just farming up some free air kills at this point, and yeah, that's never a bad thing. But right now, those fighters are still spotting Nobody Cries Wolf and Danzig's torpedo for the enemy team, which means they have got to go, or the farragut in particular is going to be very restricted and stuck behind that island. Quick glance at what the enemy are up to, and so far, well, it's actually not looking too good. Rey's taken out the carrier and has got a relatively free hand as the last of the enemy fighters go down, but, well, one battleship and one cruiser are gone, it's one control point apiece. Oh yeah, and Team Green are 150 points down, so, oh, right, okay, that could be better. Group 4 are landing to rearm. Once they're done, Group 3 can get back in the air, which leaves Groups 5 and 6 making their approach on Prelude to Oblivion. Who is probably wishing right now that he'd packed defensive fire this morning. In comes Group 6, bombs gone on the manual drop, 2 fires, 3 direct hits. There's a catapult fighter up and a bit of overlapping flak. Maybe Thornsby had defensive fire as well, but no, he didn't, because he would have used it to deal with this. Group 5 circle for a second. Maybe they did have defensive fire, because we didn't see him check it, but Reyteitoku's just backing the bombers off a bit, then decides to move in. You'll notice he's constantly adjusting the initial point for Group 5. He wants to come in stern to bow on Molotov, and there we go, Molotov's very obligingly turning into line. Group 5 come over, set the manual drop, and Molotov takes another hit and another fire. Which means he's on fire and his Damcon is gone. Well, maybe, he's still burning. Of course, now Groups 3 and 4 are on the scene, and Molotov, yeah, there's not a lot to do, but bend over, grab your ass, and prepare to explain yourself to the commissars. Yeah, cool ships don't look at explosions. So, Groups 5 and 6 back on the way home. Group 6 is rearming, Group 3 is also returning to base, Group 4 is still in the area. Very tempting to try and hunt that farragut, but he's in a smoke cloud, you're not going to find him very long, and even destroyer flak will add up quite rapidly. But they'll get a quick glimpse of him as the fighters fulfill their purpose in life. Rey is setting a bit of a search pattern for his fighters at this point, brings in the bombers to assist, Group 4 is moving back in. But the enemy farragut has seen sense, and he is legging it back to the flat cover of the 2 Arizonas, and possibly the Nuremberg. Yeah, there's a Mutsu as well, but since when did a Mutsu have any flak worth talking about? Answer, never, not unless you severely cursed the dice gods. Group 6 are coming overhead, again, ignoring the farragut. He's too small and manoeuvrable, he's not a great target, especially not when you've got a big humping Mutsu over there to take pot shots at. So, just set up the initial point on Group 6, bring him in. It's an angled drop, but you know what? It's a Mutsu, you can't really miss. Another fire, 3 direct hits. Mutsu is still burning, damage is ticking, so he's not immediately controlling that single fire. Pity, really, because Group 4 would have loved to get some uncounterable floodings in on that. Another quick glance at the Mutsu, pull back, quick look-see at the enemy fleet. Of course, as long as they're in that death ball, there are 2 Arizonas there. And okay, they're not Texas class, but they've still got respectable flak. You don't want to loiter your bombers around there unless you've no choice. The Mutsu, however, is trailing rather badly, and it's funny, really, because he's actually faster than the Arizonas. So, who to kill? Well, 1 torpedo squadron setting up on Mutsu. The dive bombers are setting up on the Arizona just to soften them up a little. Get a couple of fires there. Woof, another fire. And torpedoes into the Mutsu, who obligingly starts turning across the drop. exactly the wrong way. Eats 2, eats 3, gets a flooding, and that bags Reyteitoku his high caliber for the match. Group 3, meanwhile, are considering their next move, and yeah, the Arizona's looking tempting, particularly since he's just put the fires out and is turning across the torpedo drop, and is about to get liberated. Boom. That's kill number 3. You may have noticed, by the way, that despite his little rampage, the enemy are still 70 points up, and it's 4 ships aside. The rest of the fleet, yeah, they've not been having a good time of it. The nicest thing you can say is that they're fighting a very decent delaying action and allowing the fighters to peep on the destroyers and the bombers to do their work relatively unmolested. Of course, they are also sinking at a rapid rate. The whole point of delay actions, guys, is that you're not meant to embrace the tactics of the Death Corps. You're actually meant to survive in this kind of engagement. Although Mark 15 is probably disagreeing with that assessment at the moment. Another quick loop from the fighters just to keep them mobile. And he's spotted the Nuremberg, who has toddled away from the rest of his fleet. Well, that was a mistake, wasn't it? Now, do we think he loaded defensive fire? Of course not. It's a German cruiser in ranked. He'll have loaded hydro, almost certainly. Although, given the state the Mutsu is in, that's a far more tempting target. Taking those 8 16-inch guns out of the equation would be a welcome bonus. So, more bombs come down. 2 fires from 2 hits. The dice gods were not feeling too kind towards Mutsu, and he bags himself a witherer. On top of the arsonist he got for knocking down the Ryujou. So, torpedo bombers setting up on the Nuremberg. The Mutsu is still comfortably burning. Group 5 are having a coffee break. And Group 2 are trying to find that underage boat again. And then the Mutsu sinks. Strictly speaking, the Mutsu burns to death, but he still gets a liquidator. Go figure. So, Group 4 comes in, dumps their torpedoes. Group 3 has a sudden moment of worry because that's a catapult fighter the Nuremberg has launched. Nuremberg eats 1, 2, and takes an incapacitation. Group 3 has to abort their run at the last second because of that cat fighter, but Group 2 are on the scene. They've got other things to do besides chase underage skirt after all. Get some final torpedoes onto the Nuremberg, and as noted before, cool carriers don't look at explosions. Well, most of the time. That'll be the Kraken. Meanwhile, the rest of the team, oh yeah, suddenly there's only 2 of them left. And they're still 50 points down. And it's still 1 control point apiece. Those of you thinking that Reyteitoku might just be having a little bit of back strain at this point, you might be right. Still, Group 5 are awaiting orders, and they're getting a little close to that Atlantis, so he pulls them out of the flak. No, they're not running away, they're setting up their initial point for a run on Iron Gunner 4. As noted. Okay, maybe they are taking a coffee break. Nope, there we go, there's the order. Bringing them in front of the Arizona. The Arizona's not stupid, of course, he knows what a bomber squadron flying in front of him means. Iron Gunner comes over, sets the manual drop, and boomski, another 2 fires for the Arizona. Now, he might control that. He had 1 fire burning already, so he's on fire in 3 places. Yep, there we go. Damage counter's not ticking, and he's not visibly on fire. So, he's burned his Damcon to deal with those 3 fires. Fair enough. Didn't really have a choice. But he's just eaten a torpedo on his bow from the De Grassa. And he's about to eat another wave of dive bombers. And he's on fire in 2 places again. Oh yes, and the torpedo bombers have rearmed and are back in the air. Yeah, this is gonna hurt. That's the Confederate. Okay, fine. Well, I think the Arizona at this point knows exactly what's coming for him. He doesn't have the flak to really stop this anymore, and even if he did, well, that's 3 torpedoes in the water with another 4 to follow if necessary. 1, 2, 3. Look, looks like Group 3 are actually going to get some action. Maybe. Perhaps if he doesn't sink beforehand. Nope, Group 3 are cheated yet again as Iron Gunner burns down. This is almost the end of Thornsby, by the way. He turns just in time, manages to catch the torpedo on his hull before it completely arms, or that would have been a premature end to what is admittedly a spectacular game. 216,000 damage, 15 torpedo hits, 14 fires, 20 air kills. No, he's not done yet. Why do you ask? Credit to... well, it's due, however. It has to be noted that at this point he does make a slight mistake. You'll notice he's recalled his fighters. He had them escorting Group 3, who are currently RTB, which of course meant that they weren't spotting the Farragut anymore. Corrects his mistake, sends them back north, but Group 5 dive bombers are in play, and they are also heading back in, so they're going to see the Farragut first. And at this point, the Farragut is basically on full brown alert if he wasn't already. He's not going to be able to break contact. His flak can't stop that many aircraft, and even if they could, he's kinda got some bombs coming. So all he can do is slam on the rudder and hope for the best. He lucks out. He dodges the first bomb drop from Group 5. Group 6 line up and start setting up to try their luck, but the Farragut is jinking all over the place. Thornsby knows exactly what he's doing in air defence, and he ducks the second volley from the dive bombers. Now it's the torpedo bombers go, and, well, Thornsby's already displayed correct anti-bomber tactics once by turning into a strike, but it was a little bit of luck, and right now Ray has got 2 squadrons to work with, and this time he's dropping far enough out that Thornsby, despite turning in, is not going to be able to beat the arming distance, and that is game over. And the results screen pretty much says it all. Enough medals to keep a North Korean general happy, 16 torpedo hits, 24 bomb hits, but a good chunk of it came from the 14 fires and the 6 floodings, as evidenced by the 219,000 damage, the Witherer, the Arsonist, and the Liquidator, which is a trio you don't normally see even one of in a single game. There is unfortunately no award for this level of backstrain. I'm sure everyone will join me in sending Reyteitoku his best wishes, except possibly Akebono. We know what she thinks of Admirals. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been Yusuf. That has been Reyteitoku in the Ryujou, giving a masterclass in how to handle a 1-2-2 Ryujou in Ranked, and also thanks to the enemy carrier driver for demonstrating exactly how not to handle a 301. Seriously, boys and girls, if you don't see the enemy bombers in the first 2.5 minutes, smell a snipe and get your fighter squadrons back to cover against it. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been Yusril, and until next time, farewell.